We're just going to start the first aspect here, and I'd like to first of all start with inviting one of our mayoral candidates to come to the lectern and to introduce yourself for the first 10 minutes. So we might start with you, Dennis. You're sitting right here at the first position. So everybody, this is Dennis Walls.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. It's a miracle. Usually I'm the last because of W, at the end of the alphabet. So to start is something of a change for me. Look, a lot of you may not know who I am, and I've been around Cairns for 33 years. I'm originally, as you can probably tell from my accent, from the west of Scotland, and my father was a bank manager, so I'm pretty embedded in the background of money and finance. I always have to say that as a joke to begin with. I'm allowed to say it. It's a thing that I love about Cairns is the fact that we're so inclusive. I mean, no one ever says to me, oh, you're Scottish, whatever like that. They just accept who I am, and it's wonderful. And I feel so much part of this community. In the 33 years I've been here, I think I have been in some ways more accepted in this society, this community, than I would be in London if I was amongst the English. And so I think actually the inclusivity and the absolute warmth and welcome that people get in this country is absolutely amazing, and I love it here. What are my achievements? Somebody said outside there, you got to sell yourself, Dennis. Okay. Well, the fact is, I do come from an educational background. I've actually had a lot of involvement in the educational space, but I'm probably better known for a lot of people from my environmental work. And certainly a lot of the work I've done over the years is in protecting our green spaces and our linear corridor. And probably some of you, if you followed what happened with that dreadful Aquis development, would know that I was behind that, the stopping of that dreadful development on the floodplain, which would have left us with a sad, stranded asset, a ruined asset on a floodplain, and probably 20,000 people out of work. In relation to some of the other green work I've done is the protection and the buyback of the return and the saving, rather, of the Jack Barnes Boardwalk back into the airport hands, and also, of course, looking to buy back from the perspective of the state government with backing from the Council of Taylor Point. In the social sphere, I'm probably best known for the work that I've done in Indigenous education. I was the program manager at RATEC, which is the Remote Area Teacher Education Program, which is the most successful, and I'm allowed to say this because the data's all there to support it, the most successful Indigenous education program, not just in Queensland, but many say in Australia. And we've produced over the years that program's been going, over nearly actually just up to 200 graduates, primary teachers spread right throughout Queensland. It's a thing that I'm very, very proud of, and I think that the community is very proud of too, because we often hear those negative stories, and I think that's a real success story. And I'll be coming to more successes in that space too. And this forum, given that this forum is a forum about, as the name says, Crime and Justice Action Group, I think it's appropriate that I say something about that, and I don't shy away from that question. We know that the youth justice issue is a little bit of a failed one, and I'm not really going through everything piecemeal. We can ask that in questions later. There have been many, many failures in that space in relation to the court, child safety, etc., repeat offenders, education, and so on. The education system, apart from in the adult space in which I've operated, often people returning to education in later life, has not been successful or hugely successful either. Detention, we know, has been a failed project. We actually haven't really succeeded in the issue when it comes to reoffending. And the stats tell us that there's an increasing recidivism as a result of that. Monitoring of electronic devices is a thing that's been mooted. And I noticed that in the US, when they tried it with the anklets, that it wasn't successful. They tried it with also with apps on phones, not very successful. We know there's a big backlog in the children's court system. We know the issues around family separation. And one big elephant in the room always is the housing issue in relation to what impact housing has when it comes to the inability of people to actually have a sedentary and a peaceful life, and the implications of that when it comes to crime. Workforce development obviously is a huge one, and I'll come to that in terms of some of the solutions in just a minute. We also know there's an ice epidemic, no shying away from it, and that's an issue that has to be confronted when we deal with this issue. What can local government do? Because this could be a long discussion. It needs to listen to those who are doing the work on the ground, facilitate coordination, ensure agencies are joined up and not competing for funds but working together. I was lucky enough to attend that forum that was organized by the Senate a couple of weeks ago, and hear some excellent speeches there from people like Mark Harborough. The input that's coming from organizations like Yeti, that's the Youth Empowerment Towards Improvement mob, and of course the DIG mob, which is the Daily Indigenous Doing Good. And Jawo Binda, of course, are in that space too. Clump Mountain are in that space, and the Great Motive also are in that space too. And these are all real positives. These are organizations all really looking at good old-fashioned community development and as service system development under the banner of community safety, which of course is the role of local government in this complex arena. So there already are, as you know, multiple endeavors and efforts, and a lot of them we feel in the community, and I understand the suffering of people who are witness to it and suffer under the home invasions and so on, which happens to us too, and happens to friends of mine, and happened last week to a friend of mine recently in the Whitfield neighborhood where I live. So look, there's no shying away from the seriousness of the issue. The issue, of course, comes back to what we in local government can do, and that really is dependent on that holistic and sharing model where you integrate it with the state government. And I think Paul's idea, for example, to have a forum, a public forum, to have that conversation with all the entities after the council election is a sound one, and certainly would be one that I would support. There are clearly initiatives that need to be pushed in relation to, as I say, the strengthening of the community and that ground up. We heard that from DIG, we heard that from Yeti. We need to have that investment in that local community. And the thing I hear again and again, and I used to work with those children when I was running the RATEC program through the TAFE system, which is a partnership program with James Cook University and the schooling sector, was that it was the same families repeating again and again, in 20. And for me, the life of me, when we are in that conversation around how Mark and others are integrating that into families, we need to join the dots and make those people who are committing those offenses somehow integrated, and it's a difficult thing to do, we know that, back into the community through things that really work from the bottom up. And many of the initiatives that are being put forward, there's an initiative in the Gold Coast called swerve.com.au, and they've already put 142 young people who were in that youth justice at-risk space back into job employment. They've provided 46,000 training hours. These are things that we can be doing here in Cairns to try to mitigate, alleviate this problem, and I think that's something that Council has a significant role to play. There are, and there's an argument that, there's always, what do you say about crime? The only things that stop crime are bad weather and old age. And and there is a certain truth in that aphorism. So we have to be careful that there isn't also that blue view that we're suffering from an epidemic of reporting. We know it's serious, but we know in our apps all the time now it's just constant. And sometimes there's this disconnect between what the data says about crime and whether in fact it's really going up and the lived experience of people. And I'm very conscious of that disconnect, and we have to recognize that. But the programs I was involved on, when I was involved with the RATEC, for example, we worked with Clump Mountain, Jawo Binda to the north. And there are these other areas now where we're picking up, I mentioned Great Motive. This idea that we can somehow send people out into nowhere, we can send people out into the bush, that might work in a home-to-country model, say out of Mornington, which Mendiana is proposing, and I think that can work with country kids. It doesn't really work with our city kids. And there is a lot of evidence to that extent that when you actually put people back out into the bush, so-called, for a learning experience, that it can actually lead to serious problems, especially when there aren't trained people looking after them. So we need to be building within the community, close to cairns, within the community structure, from the bottom up, recognizing the difficulty, targeting the 20 families, linking between the council and the state government in order to try and find a solution going forward. That's all I really want to say about the crime issue at the moment. And in the time I have left, I just want to say a little bit more about how that links into housing. How long have I got? Into housing and into public transport, because these are two pathways that need to be linked into that. And into the integrative planning model which I'm proposing, with the regional plan now front and centre, and with the review of the town plan coming after that, we need to look at an integrative model of development cairns that targets the issues around housing. And if you see my opinion piece in the Cairns Post last week, you'll know what I'm talking about, the areas in which we can actually do that. Happy to take questions after. And in relation to the linking it up with a proper transport system down the Cairns linear corridor, where people feel, everybody down here that I've spoken to says, oh, no buses, can't get from A to B. What a significant improvement that would be if we could, with a growing population, get a proper transport system, integrate that into the planning process. Unfortunately, the 2050 planning model is very vague and doesn't cover the holistic thinking required with this integrative model. With that, I'll leave you and those thoughts, and happy to take questions after. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis. Terry, would you like to give us the honour of your 10 minutes?
Thanks, Aaron. Welcome, everybody. Firstly, I'll just talk a little bit about myself, so you know who I am. Born and bred Cairns resident, 5th generation pioneering family. I've been on council for 22 years now, not continuous. I had a gap in the middle when we had a council that wasn't particularly working well. It was Val Shear's council, whether you love her or hate her. She had a hung council. She had 3 different factions on the council, and it was just total disarray. So that's why we put the team back together and come back and reform the unity team. I was originally introduced to council by Mayor Ron Davis when I first ran with him, and I was unsuccessful. And since then I've ran with Kevin Byrne, was successful. I was his deputy mayor. I was in for a year with Tom Pine in his council, and the last 12 years with Mayor Bob Benning. I became mayor on the 26th of November last year, so 3 months so far in the job. I'm married with 5 adult children, 12 grandchildren, so I've got, and they're all living in Cairns, so I've got a real reason to make sure that Cairns is a good place to live. I'm a qualified building designer by profession, specialising in building design, documentation, interior design, project management and planning consultancy, which I operated this small business called CJAG Design for 46 years. That business now is in my son-in-law's hands, so I'm no longer involved. But in the late 80s, just before the recession we had to have, I had 18 staff. So I know full well the ups and downs of running a business together with the daily needs of a growing family. JB Design's clientele in those days were from towns from north across to the Cape up to Papua New Guinea, where the daily routine included negotiating and dealing with all the local councils in those areas. So I've worked on both sides of the local government counter for many, many years. During the years of Cyclone Larry and Cyclone Yassi, I worked for a group called the MCS Group. This is a privately owned group, an Australian national company that provides independent consultants technical reports to the insurance industry, loss adjusters, lawyers, government agencies and private individuals. I am, as I said, current mayor, 3 months. I'm also the chair of the local disaster management group, and I'm also involved in the district disaster management group, which is the next level up for state government. Been involved in a lot of the projects over the years, right from the lagoon, Muddy's playground, Esplanade dining precinct. I was a member of the Cairns Gallery Board, Munro Martin Park Redevelopment Steering Committee, Cairns Performing Arts Construction Committee, Trabucpur Redevelopment, and I've also been chairs of the Cairns Works Committee, the Cairns Water Committee, and the Planning and Environment Committee, and a member of the Cairns Crime Stoppers Committee for years. Volunteer experience. Before being on council, I spent 19 years in the Australian Volunteer Coast Guard, where I was staff officer, section leader, coxswain, vice commander, and designer of the new Cairns Coast Guard building at the time. Cairns and District Recreation Association, I spent 8 years on that as past president. And the Cairns Youth and Recreation Centre is a not-for-profit incorporated community organisation that provides a venue for the sporting pursuits of cultural health and wellbeing activities for those many groups that cannot afford to rent these sort of places. I did some judging for the HIA. I was a contributor to the Cairns Regional Council's Cairns Style Design Guide for all residential design from residential, commercial and industrial buildings to retain and enhance the distinct tropical style and character of Cairns. I'm currently on the Harold's House committee for 17 years. I was the original building sponsor for that, providing the concept designs, and I'm not quite sure people know what Harold's House does, but Harold's House is a community solution for homeless children and young people. It provides a safe, stable home in Cairns for local children, removing them from the risks of living on the street and helping to turn their troubled lives around. I'm also on the Far North Queensland Youth Assistance Fund, 24 years now. This fund was formed to assist disadvantaged youth in Far North Queensland to live a normal life and take advantage of education, sporting and youth club activities that are available. The fund also assists children and youth with many personal, health and educational welfare programs with the help of other agencies through major youth welfare facilities established and conducted by the fund. That's me. Cairns Unity Team. I'll particularly talk about our crime policy, which we're calling Safety Across Cairns and the Suburbs. We want to introduce a raft of measures that help Cairns residents feel safe in their homes and communities while unapologetically holding the state government to account on issues of crime and anti-social behaviour. We want zero tolerance for repeat offenders. We want to hold the state government to account to tackle this crime. And you say, how do we hold the state government to account? Well, it's safety in numbers. Every council in Queensland, and there's 77 of them, belongs to the Local Government Association, which is the peak body. At last year's conference in Gympie, late last year, Queensland's 77 councils want immediate evidence-based action to urgently address these pressing law and order issues. In 2022-23, councils united to pass several resolutions at this conference to curb crime. And they come up with basically a 9-point plan that the Local Government Association presents to the government, and the government will have to answer that. And as I said, safety in numbers, we will knock on their doors in numbers to make sure they do and do something about it. And it's very hard for a government to listen to one particular council, but if you go there en masse, I'll tell you they do listen. And these are 9-point plans. 1, a local diversionary strategies designed and implemented to keep young people out of the juvenile justice system. 2, audit of all existing place-based youth justice programs, including diversionary and other specific initiatives, to ensure they are responsive to local needs, meeting intended outcomes and are fit for purpose. 3, development of place-based cultural, appropriate pre-vocational employment and further education pathways and outcomes. 4, a local government seat at the table to inform engagement strategies that capture and support young people who are disengaging and have been disengaged from the education system and other relevant institutions. 5, increased support for victims of crime, including the establishment of a state government funding program where money and property forfeited as proceeds of crime is reinvested into impacted communities. 6, the establishment of a collaborative task force to facilitate a coordinated and consistent response across state government stakeholders. 7, the provision of additional state government operational maintenance and capital funding for CCTV infrastructure, upgraded high-definition colour CCTV for existing facilities, and Wi-Fi nodes in all tourism hotspots and vulnerable communities. 8, funding to enable local government and the Queensland Police Service to work in partnership to implement place-based crime prevention strategies. And 9, better state government support for the Indigenous recruitment preparation program to increase the numbers of fully sworn Indigenous police officers and implement a community policing model in all First Nation Council communities. We want a proactive approach to the prevention of crime and antisocial behaviour with Council public safety space officers. And to that end, in January, Council put on 5 community public space safety patrol officers. I've got a brochure on that, and these are full-time, 24/7 public safety officers that patrol our hotspots. Now, that only started early to mid-January, so it's only been going for the past month or so. And can I tell you, the second day in operation, I had a phone call from a lady who said she was having no response from the police, could not get any help. So I said, okay, I'll try our new system out. I phoned the camera room. I said, can you see any trouble? And I won't tell you where it is because it's a business, so they don't want to be identified. The cameras picked up the troublemakers. We sent the safety patrol officer straight out there. They called the police. Both of them removed the offenders, and now that's a particular hotspot. We've been watching it ever since. She phoned me 2 weeks later and she said, Terry, it's the first time in 20 years I've been able to sleep at night. So it is working, and then we also put additional security officers, which are contract security officers, on in the city. Basically, in a nutshell, I was down in Brisbane last week advocating for money for our water project, and I mentioned to both sides of the government that we support the Kata relocation sentencing model, and that's quite good. I've got one copy of it here, but you can get it online on the Kata website. It is very good, and that's why we support it. Similar to the Jeff Guest model, if anyone in particular knows that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Amy?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Amy Eden. Eden like the garden. And here we are in the garden city of Cairns. And as they say, from little things, big things grow. So I'm here today to talk to you about growing Cairns, growing our futures, growing our tomorrow. Firstly, a little bit about me. I hail from the Northern Territory. My husband and I moved to Cairns 20-something years ago with a 3-year plan. I was to finish my degree out at James Cook, and we were to head back to Darwin. But the problem is we fell in love with Cairns, and likely for those that weren't born here, for the same reasons. The beautiful climate, the mountains absolutely captured my heart, and the people. I mean, we are the gateway to the Asia Pacific. We've got an international airport, and we are absolutely sandwiched between beautiful World Heritage environments. So we invested here. We bought houses here, we've had our children here, and we've dedicated our lives to being here in Cairns. We absolutely love it. I have worked in the youth justice space, in the youth space with homeless children for many, many years. In fact, I have run a couple of organisations in that space. And in fact, my desk, when I was in the Cairns Safer Streets Task Force, housed at district office, was next to Mr. Taylor's. But he probably doesn't remember that. But I do remember you had your titanium bike often stashed in your office. So I have worked in a multi-government agency task force, working particularly in the 3Ms, Mayoral and Mayoral, in a multi-pronged approach, outside the box, cross-departmental information sharing to create real change. And I advocated, when I was in that role, that council, local government, have a seat at the table. It's important. We're about place shaping. Local government is about place shaping. So we've got a seat at the table, and we've had a seat. Cairns Regional Council have had a seat at the Cairns Safer Streets Task Force table for 8 years. Unfortunately, the information flow from that table back into the councillors and into the wider community ebbs and flows. Sometimes you get a lot of information and sometimes not so much. Now that task force was managed by Queensland Police for many years, and only just recently in the last 6 months is being managed by Department of Communities. I'm a first term councillor. I'm very much the accidental politician. What does that mean? Well, it means that the former Mayor Bob Manning asked me to run, and very flattered I said, thank you, but no thank you. I work in the community, for community, that's what makes my heart sing. I'm not into politics, I couldn't even tell you the councillors' names, I want to get things done on the ground. And he said, that's why you'd be a really good councillor. And for 18 months he asked me, and he asked me, and he asked me, and I finally said yes. And I'm really glad that I did, because very much accidental. I'm not here to be a career politician, I'm here to bring about meaningful change for my community. And I have absolutely loved my time at the table. Yes, it's been a little bit of a rough and tumble at times, but not without benefit. Not without benefit for the community. I truly believe that. And I love my role so much that I'm prepared to risk it to run for mayor, because I truly believe that we're in a bit of a stalemate. We're in a council that has lost touch, lost its way, and we deserve better. Constantly I am hearing, no matter where I go, from Branston to the beaches, that we need change. It's time for change. We need fresh ideas, we need fresh energy. I keep hearing it, and hence Team Eden was born. Team Eden, some people are wondering why Team Eden? Well, obviously it's an easy thing to remember. Eden like a garden, we're in the Garden City, but it's very familiar. We've got Jenny Hill, team in Townsville. We've got Mayor Sally Capp with the team Capp, and we've got Clover Moore with Team Moore in Sydney. It's a very common scenario. So what I probably want to really just say is, you don't necessarily remember the things that have happened, but you remember how you feel when they happened. And that's really what we want to do. It's not sexy and beautiful and flashy, but it's sensible. You know, we're in a bit of a predicament where we need to just tighten our belts, reassess and review, and get back to sensible and get back to basics. And that doesn't mean that you're going to have a plaque on the wall, but it means that people are going to have roofs over their homes, roofs over their houses, roofs over their heads, in fact, and they're going to have an engaged and safe community. Now, community safety is a huge topic of conversation for this election, and rightly so. As a city councillor, I have been most upset with seeing the constant struggles of business owners and CBD residents struggling to live in the city and work in the city and play in the city. So much so that I wrote to the Premier and the Leader of the Opposition a year ago, And did I get reprimanded or get my wrist slapped for doing so? Yes, I did. But do I apologise? No, I'm unapologetically saying to the government, enough is enough. Enough is enough. We need to do better. So what we will do is we will petition to the Premier to identify Cairns as a proactive policing site. What does that mean? That means we will utilise the hardware that exists in Cairns. Council have over 500 CCTV cameras, Transport and Main Roads have cameras, Ports North have cameras. Everyone has cameras, yet they're not monitored proactively by police. Should that happen, we can stop things before they happen. Back in 2018, Operation Romeo, I don't know if anyone here is familiar with it, but that saw a police officer in council's control room. And they could command and control back to QPS, back to police, and intervene. Now, our crime rates in the CBD dropped 50%, so we know it works. Yet, it's a simple thing. And it's not about huge outlays. Like I said, the infrastructure, the hardware, the cameras are already there. But there's little things that we can do in local government. There's underawning lighting in the city to light the city up, making sure our development approvals have that as a condition, or a bylaw to make it happen. Review and regulate our street entertainment. Darwin City Council did a great job of theirs in the last 24 months, and it has changed all of the begging that has happened on the street in Darwin. And we could have the same, we could have quality entertainment, but proactive and positive activation. CBD residential living is important. People tell us they want to live there with their little dogs, and yet for 12 years, dogs have been banned in the city by a bylaw. Thankfully, the people of Cairns spoke up late last year, and that will change in the middle of this year, and dogs will be back in the city. But all of these little things will play a huge role. Did you know that the refi Ferris wheel in the city generates around 120 circa, approximately, revenue for council a year? Where does that go? It goes into just the general operating surplus, out into a business. But if that money was quarantined and the people of Cairns knew that it was being spent to activate or to improve safety or to put shades over playgrounds, they'd be really happy about that. And they've told me that because I continually ask them every time I'm out and about. So there's a whole range of things, but fundamentally, Team Eden and myself, we want to deliver a renewed council on 3 fundamental values of transparency, accountability, and engagement. Now, these are motherhood statements. Like I said before, it's about how you do business, relational versus transactional. And transparency, we've had a pretty tough time at council, and we've asked for things and they've been denied and haven't been shared, and there's been lots of closed door discussions. Well, we want to open that up. You deserve to know where your rates are being spent. You deserve to know what we are talking about on the table of council. Our pre-meeting meetings, we call them workshops. The agendas are confidential, but I keep asking why, and I can never be told, because that's how we've always done it. So we will introduce a transparency and integrity portal. And that sounds fancy, but it really is just a web page where you know and you can access in one-stop shop all of the information that you need to know. We will open the doors of council. Accountability, the only thing that you get for accountability of your councillor are the minutes of our council meetings. Yet councils across Australia, not just Queensland, across Australia, tell you where their councillors have been, what schools they've attended, and it's all on public record. So you know where or where not your councillors are. And engagement, community conversations like this on a very regular basis. You'll see our councillors out in your suburbs. Like I was at Tom Murray Park the other night talking to the dog walkers, and they had a lot to say. So I'm going to hang around if you've got a lot to say and a lot of questions. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Aaron, and to the team for organising today. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. All right, does Paul want to claim a first in privilege down there, or would you like to reorganise? Great, Paul Taylor, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. A bit about me. I come to Cairns in 2009 for the second stint and set up roots here, bought a house and lived with my partner who was born and bred here, just down the road here, and went to Edmonton school. So fell in love with the place. I'm a passionate regional person and certainly passionate about far north Queensland and Cairns. Bit about me, I had a 45-year history in policing. And a lot of people ask me, well, how do you translate that to running for mayor and council? So I'll give it my best to draw the analogies. First and foremost, I've got a few cork flutes out, those that are still in the ground that haven't disappeared. And they've got strength in leadership. What's leadership all about? And how do you become a leader? So my leadership goes back a long way. Some would argue that police, when they're first sworn in, leaders within their community. I'd argue something else. I think it's something that you've got to work into, and certainly experience gained, and those avenues that you go through to develop. So what was the experience that I had? So back in '86 I was in what was called then the emergency squad, which is the predecessor to the special emergency response team. I worked there, so basically responding to high risk incidents, anything involving firearms. In 1991, myself and another bloke, we designed what is now the Special Emergency Response Team, and that was up and running in '92. There's a team of it here. They're Brisbane based, and they basically provide a response right across the state of Queensland, and in some cases interstate, around high risk situations. So I commanded over 100 high risk situations where I've had to resolve. Mostly peacefully, but others unfortunately weren't peaceful. So my leadership has been tested in coronial courts, has been tested in post-incident reviews, and withstood scrutiny. So I'm able to lead in critical situations and make decisive decisions. Move on. I've run a number of regional activities. Was the Assistant Commissioner for 12 months on the Gold Coast, which is the most dynamic policing area in Queensland. Went on to run Logan, which is a very diverse community. Ran Cairns, far north Queensland. Northern region, which took in Townsville and Mount Isa, and finally regional Queensland, and a range of corporate assets, including the air wing, all police vessels, dogs, horses, and a range of other activities. So corporately, I've been involved in huge decisions. I built a number of police stations which sit in Cairns, nearby here, Gordonvale, as a result of me awarding a new police station. So I've worked well with councils right across the board. I've been involved in disaster management on a regional basis, worked with numerous councils, worked across the disaster management for Queensland as well as a lot of regional areas. So back in 2001, my leadership was recognised by Australian Police Medal, which I was the youngest to receive at that time, and that was specifically for my leadership shown to the community. I've gone on to develop as a leader, and I've been involved most of the major activities that have been conducted in Queensland. I've either been the commander for, so the G20 finance ministers meeting here in Cairns some years ago, commanded that, was deputy commander with Katarina Carroll for G20 itself. And so a range of major activities that have been conducted in Queensland successfully, where I've either had the leadership role or been 2IC, and my leadership's been reviewed. I've had to make decisive decisions almost on a daily basis. So my role as Deputy Commissioner Regional was 7 days a week, all hours of the day, all hours of the night. So what do leaders do in a council perspective, and more particularly as a mayor? Well, good leaders, they advocate on behalf of their community, and I've been doing that. Strong leaders advocate in a way that they create change that benefits the community. So when there was an opportunity before the parliamentary review on youth justice, I did exactly that. I echoed the voice of the community. I drew on my experiences 45 years in policing, and I recommended to the committee that they remove custody as a last resort when before magistrates, because that hinders the magistrates' decisions. I also advocated that there should be banning orders for young people that continually prey on people in shopping centres and or the CBD. They should be banned from that location. And that banning notice should be linked to their bail conditions. The government today, or not today, the government of the day, they've now changed that breach of bail is now an offence. When a young person gets bail, there's no commitment for them to go to school. So again, I've recommended that conditions of bail should be linked to that young person being enrolled and engaged at school. And if they're not, breach of bail, back in custody. I've also advocated on behalf of those kids that are in environments that are in social housing, that's a privilege. And in my mind, privileges come with conditions. So a condition of a public house should be all school-aged kids are enrolled, engaged in school. We know children that don't have access to education, their opportunities to advance in life are really harmed. You know, the chances of them being productive citizens without education, the chances of getting them jobs is diminished greatly. So these are important things. Frequently we hear about what about the parents, what about the guardians? I recommended to the committee that guardians, be they parent or be they other caretaker, they should be appearing in court and they should be demonstrating to the magistrate why they have not provided guardianship to that young person. That's reasonable, but that's also what I hear when I talk to people. I'm echoing what they think and I'm drawing on my experience. So these are all things that I've advocated for. I've also advocated to them that local government have a role to play. So I've demonstrated advocacy as being a role of leadership. What else can they do? Well, I frequently, as a young fella, used to see how local governments used to employ young people. In the office as administrators, tradespeople, as apprentices, and also in the workforce. There are opportunities out there for money streams to be sought to deliver programs to at-risk kids, where those programs could not only benefit at-risk kids, but deliver assets, footpaths, mow gardens, shrubs in the local government area. I've also suggested that all these sporting grounds, they're on council property predominantly. Council's a landlord. There's a capacity there. We know the links between young people and sport, nurturing them, providing them with positivity so that they go on to be productive. There's plenty of examples of that. No one's asked them, can they help? Even if they took one at-risk child. There's no doubt that the police are locking up children that are doing the wrong thing. And there's no doubt that with the removal of in custody as last resort, we'll see more kids. But it's at capacity. People often ask me, you're the Deputy Commissioner, why didn't you fix it? Well, I can tell you now, the statistics show police have never ever locked up more people. There's never been more people in custody, be they adult or children. The watch houses, which I used to have to monitor twice a day right across the state, were at capacity. Why have we got kids in custody? I can tell you now that a lot of these kids, it's safer for them to be in custody because they are doing extremely risky things. You have a 10-year, 11-year-old, 12-year-old kid driving a car 140 k's, that's going to end up nasty at some stage. And then there's the balance. So we always see the balance towards the victim, and I've suggested to the Parliamentary Committee that that seesaw has to go the other way. We have to balance safety for the victims. So there's people in this room that have got some great programs. One of the things that I notice when I talk to people, and I do try to talk about other things, and they bring me back to crime. And I say to them, crime sits with the state government, law and order, state government. But that doesn't mean crime prevention doesn't sit with council. And I have announced that within 100 days that we would have a forum to allow people to air their voices, to showcase experts in that field and to get some tangible ideas and solutions. There's no doubt that right across the board we need to measure everything. Any public money that's been spent needs to be measured, and council need to assist those community members that want to come forward, that want to help, that want to provide programs, in-kind support, utilising council assets. There's lots of things council can do. So my leadership is not about spending money. I'm very, very conscious of the fact that we possibly don't have much money to spend. So I've made no promises to spend money. My promises are around strong leadership, around collaboration, cooperation, coordination, and commitment. A strong leader can galvanise people towards a vision and ensure that they're enthusiastic to get there. That's what I want to do, use existing resources and get a better outcome, a safer outcome for this community. And I've got no doubt if we're all singing off the same sheet of music, we will get a better outcome, and that's what I'm about. And thank you for those that organised. And the meal out here is great. If you just haven't tried it, it's pretty good food. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, our last candidate is Binda Warren Villas. Is that correct, mate? Welcome.
Hello everyone. I'd just like to apologise for my lateness. My elderly mother was admitted to hospital. We got a few phone calls there, so I'd like to give my apology. Alright, first of all, congratulations to all my mayoral candidate opposition leaders, eh? Quite proud of them, very, very proud of them. And they all deliver on really, really great policies, trying to represent community really well. They all actually obtain unique things that they can bring to the table that's vital to improving things. And I'm sort of more along the lines of, we sort of had all of that, now we need something new, something fresher, new approacher, like younger people with more energy, more vibrance and everything, you know? So throughout this campaign, I have been to all of the divisions. I've spoken to key people of community, and there's people in this room that I've held some private conversations with. So I just want to say, I won't identify who you are, but I want to say I value your conversation that I've had with you. Right, so who am I? I'm Binda Warren Vetters. Okay, that name Vetters comes from a doctor called Dr. Vetter, and I'm a traditional Murawari man from Kalgoa National Park. My family are Indigenous. On my father's side, they're Spanish Arabs, and my family have lived on and off here for the last 50, 60 years. Okay, so with that, I just want to pay my respects to past, present and future leaders and traditional owners to this country. And I believe that's important to delivering where we're going to go when talking with youth justice. All right, so now what we're going to do is identify some key things that I've been working very hard on to try and to deliver for this area, right? I've held very long depth conversations with justice group leaders, ministers, with tourism, health, education, the whole lot. So you just might not see a lot of me out there, but I've been working hard behind the scenes. And regardless to whether I'm successful as a candidate for Mayor for Cairns, I do believe that I can bring change to things where they need to be. And I'll do that through you beautiful people. Right, so now, we talk about the infrastructure here at this area. From community, they'd like more express bus services, and they'll talk about lack of funding through Connect, the contractor for public transport. So I've spoken with state government, and we are looking at bringing changes there. People are saying, we're getting on a bus and we sort of can't hold our bladder long enough to get to the city because it's taking over an hour to an hour and a half by the time it goes through all the suburbs. So I think that's important information, that whoever is successful with the mayor election, that they listen to community to try and deliver better transport infrastructure. Okay, second thing that I'm hearing from this community is you would like your own music events, more public engagement to do with activities, a whole lot of things that you want to have as a centre of community where you can celebrate. And that will include local traditional to do with cultural tourism as well. All right, so I'm listening to the people that have spoken to me about that, and we are working on that to try and deliver better. Over the past 8 years, I've been facilitated meetings here in Cairns to do with arts and performing arts, movie studios, actors, re-engineering the whole sector from the ground up. And that's like your children. Do your children deserve to grow up in an area that has got just as good facilities, that they can be an actor, they can be a singer, they can be a producer, they can be an artist, a dancer, the whole lot. So it's all about bringing those things that can better their futures and delivering them here. And we've had to hold many talks from the ground up, and it all comes back to council. Where is the council's position? How do they support it? Where will they invest in it? So yes, you will see investment in these areas. I've wholeheartedly have said that I will support these areas, including looking at different sporting events of how we can elaborate those to increase a better turnover in business, as well as increase in tourism. Now we're in a very important area where we can have international tourism as well. So I think there needs to be a lot of consultation with community, with council, and I mean real conversations, not conversations that are falling on deaf ears and they're going, oh, we don't hear about it, we're not getting a response in that. I will be engaged and committed in delivering better outcomes for you there. And I've sat through quite a lot of meetings in order to discuss international sporting events in this area. And we're talking about electric motorbike races, as well as electric car races to electric boat races, as well as we have spoken about Barrier Reef Winter International Tennis Tournament, and how we will get an area. I want to say there's a few areas that could actually be chosen for this tournament complex, and it's all about getting the right people from all the industries here in council and consolidate with the right community people in order to deliver these outcomes. So where are we going with sports and recreation? I'm hearing they would like to have more support, more access to promoting their events, as well as it comes back to community again. Do the children deserve and have the ability to grow up to be a sports star? All right, so then again, we've got to get back to the foundations of supporting local business, sporting, arts, recreational activities, the whole lot, in order to drive that through. Through the collective meetings that we've had with state and local government, and we're able to come through and deliver at the new Bunnings movie studio site. That'd be state-of-the-art movie facilities that will bring international producers, actors, the whole lot, and try and encourage and mentor local talents to an international level. So that again, we're trying to re-engineer the film, movie, acting, music, sports, that whole industry. And from working with these people over the last 10 years, they said, we feel underfunded. So we need to get back to supporting local sports and arts and entertainment sectors. Rightio. Now, I've heard a bit about youth justice. Right, my background, I'm a father of a 30-year-old. I was the father of a 17-year-old, but sadly, just like 4 years ago, she passed in a car accident, right? So I do understand more so what crime is about, how it affects the family, how it affects the community, the whole lot. So I've been having meetings, like I've got a certificate in youth work, community work. I work for the Family Prevention Unit in community, where we started up a youth yak shack, where we started up the breakfast program at school. They went to school, they finished school, done their homework class, then we provided a youth yak shack access building where us as community could help entertain these kids, support them through sports, recreational needs, whatever, until about 8:30. Then the community leaders would take them home in a bus and safely deliver them home. We were able to sort of take and send home some meals to them to help the family a bit more. And it gave us more of a community hands-on approach from the bottom up. And then the night patrol went through all the schools, the bridges, parks, gardens, wherever they need to, even problematic areas. So I hear a lot of needs about youth justice reform in this area, and so we went back to the police that, okay, so you arrest a child for a light crime. You know home's not the best place, where do you go? So we secured the federal funding last year for the Youth FOIA program, and also it's a recommendation that we will make a recommendation to state, local and federal government that with the Murray Court system, that all youth enter into that program, and that way they can monitor them and extend it to 6 months, working with counsellors, doctors, professionals to get to the bottom. And we need to increase services into the home and see if we can sort out where domestic violence is, violence to children, abuse, neglect. And from what I hear from this community, they want parents held accountable for their neglect. So they want more accountability, and I do agree with that. If that's not the right place for the kids, well, we'll find a suitable place for them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Binda. Wonderful, okay. Wasn't that fantastic? What we're going to have now is a couple of microphones travelling through the room, and we're going to take some questions. So for those that would like to ask a question, you can put your hands up and we can start with you. Okay, let's start at the back there where Billy is, and then we'll come down to the front.
Hello. Afternoon, thank you, Aaron. Congratulations to all the mayoral candidates. My name's Jody Batsky, and been here in Cairns since 1971 when my family came down from Thursday Island. It's great to hear everything that you're proposing as candidates, but I have not heard one candidate speak about our 2050 plan of the future growth of this community. And I sit on the First People Advisory Committee on council, and we were part of the consultation asking, well, the consultants asked us, where do we see the Indigenous community in this footprint by 2050? And I'll just quickly read off some stats. By 2050, we'll have 32,500 more homes required. But I've yet to hear any of the candidates talk about how we are going to do that, given that we are coming to the end of phase 3 of this consultation process, with the launch of phase 4 with the draft strategy to be given or implemented next year. So as mayoral candidates, what are your visions in future thinking about law and justice and safety, given we only have about 25, 26 years to go to complete that? Thank you.
Thanks, Yodi. Actually, I did mention it in my talk, the 2050. I did. Yeah. No, it's a huge thing for us in the 2050 plan, and it's one of the things that I'm probably noted for over the last 2-3 weeks, which is something I've been writing about quite a lot. And if you have been following Cairns Local News and Channel 7 and also the Cairns Post. That has been a strong feature of what I've been saying, and also Charlie McKillop in our programme have been quoted several times in that space in relation to the elephant in the room, which I mentioned earlier as well in relation to housing and population growth. And yes, it's true, under the 2050 plan, the forecast is an estimated, at the moment we're sitting at 172,000 people, forecast at the moment is for 250,000, 70,000 more people. By the way, the former head of the Advanced Cairns Lobby Group, who's now working as an advisor to UQ and JCU on the integrative planning model, tells me he thinks it's going to be higher than that because, as you saw in the paper yesterday, there's a big push to militarize Cairns, you know, with the push against China in the Pacific and the idea that we're going to have a lot more people from the defense forces in Cairns. So that population could grow beyond the 70,000. It could be upwards of 100,000 in the future. And absolutely it's a key issue. The big problem is the space allocation. And one of the things I've been working with on the people that I've just mentioned in relation to this, and into Alan Coller's wonderful article in the quarterly, The Great Divide on the Housing Crisis, is how we densify in Australia. And it is a complex issue, and I don't know how much time I've got, and I don't want to dominate on this conversation because others will need to speak as well. But it is a huge issue in Australia. In Europe, you probably know cities were organically developed through already a pre-existing footprint that then morphed into the suburbs that we didn't go through that experience, and we went basically from a CBD out to a sprawl, if you want to call it that, negative term I know, but suburbia is often the term that's used. So we don't have the history of medium density, and what we need really is to change that idea, and that's what Alan Coller mentions. If we're going to grow our housing, we need to have a conversation around medium density. And in the CBD in Cairns, we have that existing possibility through the transfer of existing space from the commercial to the accommodation that we require. But outside of that, there's very little conversation around what medium density might look like in Cairns and elsewhere in Australia, because people push back. They don't want to have medium density, by the way, usually means 5 stories. Now that, for people, if you're living in a nice house and something, a 5-story goes up, you go, I don't want that. But if we are seriously having a conversation around the need to house, then we do need to have a conversation around what the community will accept in relation to densification. And that will normally be high-rise within the urban footprint, and it will be medium density outside of that within our linear corridor. And this is a debate which we aren't having. And in this document 2050, by the way, it's incredibly vague. And I've already mentioned it to Terry and others. It's only until about page 17 that actually the concept of density is even raised. And so we're not having a serious conversation about what that might look like. And I think we really do need to have it. Otherwise, we're going to have what Alan Coller suggests in his article. You're going to have the state government need to impose on councils the need to densify, and if they don't do it, we'll defund you. That's actually what's said in that article, because otherwise we're not going to reach our population targets with the population growth which is anticipated. I could talk a lot more about this, and I'm happy to share this afterwards, but I don't want to dominate the conversation anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I only only had 10 minutes, so you can't cover everything. The 2050 plan that we're going through at the moment, that is how will Cairns look from a helicopter view in the year 2050. So the idea of the 2050 plan, it will inform the next planning scheme for Cairns Regional Council, which council will start at the end of this year. That's where all the rubber meets the road, where we decide which way we go. You're right, we have to densify Cairns, and that's the biggest and the hardest conversation we're going to have. There's particular areas that people say we don't want any more densification, but we have to turn the NIMBYs into YIMBYs. Not in my backyard, to yes in my backyard. And that conversation will be had when we start advertising for public submissions to the 2024 Cairns plan.
Thank you for the question, Yodi. I ditto Councillor Terry's comments, 10 minutes trying to get it all in. And following on from Terry's comments there about the 2050 plan and the next steps for the planning scheme, I think it's really important that it highlights the level of consultation that is happening with the 2050 plan. So there's a lot of literacy or learning from a grassroots level for our community what this actually means. What does densification mean? What are the required infrastructure requirements for that density? What does that mean from a health perspective, a housing, education, etc.? So those conversations are having been said, and we're building up our community's comprehension and literacy of those levels so we can further have those conversations, just like Terry was saying. But I think it's really important to know that the early conversations identified the CBD, Edmonton and Smithfield as those densification nodes, because you have the health, the housing, existing infrastructure, you've got the education, and you've got all the road networks. So that's really important to be mindful of. And it's also really important to be mindful of what that might look like in green development, so green spaces, whether it's a battle axe block and you're trying to put as much in as you can. So they're the conversations that are really going to be crucial in the next 12 months moving forward as we develop that plan. Thank you.
Yeah, great question, and I've tried to talk about how we would manage our growth into the future. When I talk to people out in the street, and they're straight back to either the finance situation or the crime situation, so that's why I also focus. Look, I think we've got to balance our growth. We've got to manage the fact that we've got people that have bought in and invested into a lifestyle, and there's many locations across the LGA where people's lifestyle is everything to them. So it's got to be a very finely managed activity. I agree with the others that obviously the CBD has a great opportunity there for a heavy density to create a vibrant city and support businesses, the retail, the entertainment precinct, the restaurants and so forth there. But I also think that there's opportunities for us to sprawl a bit further. We need to make sure that the plans are consistent with preserving the environment. Obviously, that's one of the beautiful things everyone that lives here enjoys, those that visit here enjoy. So it's a very fine line. We have to get consistency with what we're doing as far as services and transport. We've seen other cities where they've created residential way out of where all the services are, and all it does is it increases crime, it increases social disconnection. So the planning must ensure that we've got water for a starter, we've got the road infrastructure. A lot of people are concerned when there's changes to their area, which puts a lot more people on the road, puts a lot more time frame between them travelling from where they are into their place of work. We've got to imagine what the industries that we have here today, which are the economic drivers, what are they going to look like in 25 years' time? You know, what's the agriculture sector going to look like? What's the growth in education? How does tourism play out? Health sector. So I think that's a fine management all the way through, but there's got to be consulting all the way along the way, and we've got to make sure that we're keeping a majority of the people on the journey and they're committed to it and they're happy about it. And it's a moving target. As new things emerge, we should be pulling in the lessons that our forefathers probably knew about when they built houses on stilts. You know, we really need to look at where we are putting new developments to make sure that we're not creating more problems into the future around climatic events. You know, so I think a lot more thought needs to go into that. But you can't just go placing people out in the never without the services. That just creates more problems than what it solves. So thank you.
2050, I'll be like 80-year-old So I guess, you know, you probably want someone in there that has a bit of youth behind them, that can follow through on all of the projects. And that is very important. That someone that has more years to offer to commit to long-term projects. You know, we talk about infrastructure. Now, I'm just going to be honest, I just do not see local council, local government, state and federal wanting to invest in areas that don't want to grow. They will, I can see the bare minimum been happening in these areas, and I actually see the effects of that through different areas that do not want to comply with economic growth. And they say, why do we go and put money in that area when we've got to go around them? So I'll leave that as a message out to people, right? It's important that we have the right water infrastructure, building of dams, roads, infrastructure, the whole lot. Like, where are we going with cleaner energy and reducing carbon emissions, you know? Are we going to go electric cars? Are we going to try and provide public transport that's going to reduce these carbon emissions? And I actually have a vision that with all the weather outcomes that we have, all the roads getting damaged, infrastructure and that, but I do firmly believe, by living in Sydney, Gold Coast, a whole lot of different areas, that it's time for a light speed rail to go all the way from Atherton to Mareeba to Corando down to Cairns, so we can encourage growth up in the tablelands, and people will be in the city within 26, 27 minutes. And also we're going to need better infrastructure in and around building, and you might have all the land you want, but somewhere along the lines things are going to go up higher and higher and higher. If not, they've got to get wider and wider. So I do see a future with the 2050 plan moving up in the tablelands and surrounding areas. We also have to be mindful of our connection to country, environment, emissions, our responsibilities there, and we also have to protect culture as well. Now, we have had discussions with Thursday Island that good friends and family of mine that are up there, they'd like to see more battery, solar, generated electricity. They want to have more water dams built up there so they can store their own water. And as we're seeing it now, the growth has started, and these communities need help as well to grow and to sustain the people within there. You can't cover everything. It's right here, right now, but if it's going to go the way they think it is, expansion, development is the way, and water infrastructure, transport, building, housing, development, and you talk about crime. Okay, so...
Let's keep moving on. Sorry, mate, we're just conscious of time, so...
All right, yep. Okay, so with crime, we need to... I'll get back to that, that's important.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I might just get to the next question if someone's got a microphone. David, I think it was the gentleman at the front here that was nominated as the second questioner, but we'll definitely get to you. Please be patient with us if you don't mind. There you are, David. Fire your question away, and let's try and make it as brief as we can, folks, so we can get through all the questions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, folks. I was born here 83 years ago, so there's been a few changes in that time, as you're aware. I was also the electrical engineer for the council here, from Tom Pine through to other areas. Then I became the facilities manager for council. So I've been in the area for a long time and had some skin in the game for council. There are several issues that concern me, and one of them is, it seems to me that the CEO runs this bloody council, we had the other day, we had circumstances where the councillors weren't aware that the CEO had made changes to the cash at the council yards. There's the issue of water security. I've run Terry on the John Mackenzie show for a number of years, looking at what are you going to do to support the water we need. We're looking at an expansion of the population. We've done nothing substantial about water. Now Terry tells me, we've spoken to the government. We need strong representation, not wave your hands, we've spoken. We need to have some real leadership from people to get the bloody job done, or we're all going to have to cut back on the water.
Okay, so it sounds like two questions there, David. One was who's leading the council, really? And the second one there is what are you going to do about water, Terry?
Thank you. We've signed a contract last week for a new water supply. That's commencing construction. They'll start on site mid-year, and it has to be finished by mid-2026. Now that's a run-of-river supply from the Mulgrave River just below the mill. Unfortunately, I've been on council when I first started in 1994. I was in the Cairns Mulgrave water supply. We looked at the Flaggy Creek. Unfortunately, it ended up being an Aboriginal burial ground. That was the end of that one. We've looked at the Barron River. We've looked at the Nalinga. We've looked at Cully Mill Stream. We've been up a lot of dry gullies. 29 years now. Every time we turn, we come up with a no from the particular state government. You've got to go somewhere else. So we finally decided to go to the Mulgrave River. We've also got an emergency water supply, which is the aquifer out in Gordonville. That's got a lot of issues with the farmers as well. So it is a problem, and a lot of these solutions aren't in our local government area, particularly the Barron River. The farmers up in the tablelands are worried about the water allocations that Cairns Regional Council will take all the water and that will affect the crop. So it's not for want of trying, but we've actually signed the contract. The other one, the CEO doesn't run the show. There's sometimes some operational measures that are taken that unfortunately the public don't agree with, but can I tell you, I moved the motion to bring back the cash. So once we found out about it, we do get involved and try and change things. A lot of people don't understand way councils work. It's exactly like the judiciary and the police. There's a line in the sand that cannot be crossed. So these new candidates, I think they're going to get in there and wave their hands around and start changing things. You better think, because as an individual councillor, you have zero power. Zero power. The only power you've got, the only power you've got is around the boardroom table when you all vote. That's when the decisions are made. But there is a lot of operational matters that councillors can't get involved in, and that became particularly hard when the Balcurra legislation was brought in, when they changed the rules, and they really did, unfortunately, stop the councillors from being involved in a lot of these decisions. But that's all been fixed.
Thank you, Terry. I might just get one more quick response if we can.
Yeah, well, the issue of water is a huge one, because I asked the council if they could have me have a meeting with me prior to the vote on the Mulgrave Shire, which was a $500 million project. It was $250 million 2 years ago. It went up to $500 million. And I thought it was really wrong that it was voted on 2 months before an election. I was denied access to a meeting with the people who were involved because it was seen to be too close to an election, but they still went ahead and voted it. I employed a hydrologist. We looked into the possibilities of rainwater tanks, smart metering, and also curing the leaks in the system. You might have heard him on the ABC just yesterday, but he was arguing that with our rainwater and a subsidy for rainwater tanks, we have a real potential to do enormous savings of water that would be the best backup in the case of an emergency such as arose during the flooding event recently.
Thank you for the question, David. Just firstly, I probably want to just correct something. Terry was saying that as an individual councillor, you don't have any influence, you're just a single councillor, which is true. However, the position of mayor has special powers. The mayor gets to direct the CEO, and that's very much what you're pointing out. That's right. And so I believe that has been lacking. We haven't had that leadership. The council, the Casher Council facilities, the proposed tenant tax, I mean, I could rattle them off. But in regards to water, yes, we've been hearing about this water crisis, and there is a water crisis. We need to capture and treat water because we need to drink it. But we've also got a demand management strategy that's years and years old, that's never been reviewed. And it's meant to be reviewed annually, and it hasn't. So that's also an issue, because if we had been monitoring that, the situation could have been different. But I also want to just quickly mention that A-class recycled water really needs to come into play. And we can do that very easily. We have one client, I won't name names, and they use nearly 10% of our potable, which is drinking, water supply for non-drinking water purposes. If they were using Class A recycled water, we've just gained another 10% of water in our water supply. So we just need to do things differently. We need some fresh ideas and thinking, and someone ready to give it a go.
Yeah. Well done. Thank you, Annie. Okay, we'll just move on to the next question down there if we can. There's a person there, Billy, if you don't mind. Just quickly ask a very concise question if you don't mind. We're just conscious of the time.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Doreen. I'm a local resident. I'm a mother of a profoundly disabled child. Her name is Emma, who's right here. Sorry. So my question to any of the candidates is around the future planning of camps, especially around accessibility for people with disabilities and the elderly. We are an aging population, and many of you I see, that we're getting to an age where we're possibly looking at using a wheelie walker, a wheelchair, or any sort of mobility device in the future, in addition to people like my daughter who will depend on a wheelchair for the rest of her life. So the question is, how will you as mayor or as council ensure that accessibility is no longer an afterthought, but will be at the forefront of all future projects and developments, specifically considering the poor track record that Cairns had regarding the Cairns specific, the CJAG, the Performing Arts Center, where there is not a fully accessible toilet that would permit my daughter to get changed there. The Tubu pool again doesn't have, when it was rebuilt, a adult change facility suitable for my daughter's needs. The Warri pool extension to include an accessible hydrotherapy pool was declined by council. We have so many playgrounds that are not accessible for family members using wheelchairs. Everything is sand, so family members using wheelchairs can't access these playgrounds to have, see their kids or grandchildren playing. And the last example I'm raising is I've been, I think I found out that the new project, Access Housing in Warri, will not cater for wheelchair users and people with mobility impairment. So again, we're going to build 490 odd units that are non-accessible. And this is a project that is going to be in Cairns for 50, 60 years, and our aging population. So this is something that was neglected. So what will Cairns Council do to get stronger involved and ensure that Cairns is accessible in all areas?
Okay, thank you. Who would like to answer a series of questions there? It sounds like one of them might be access housing, which could be a state issue, Terry, but specific facilities and disability access planning.
Okay, the access to those units that you're talking about, it will have wheelchair access because they must comply with the Building Code of Australia, which has just been upgraded. This started last year, to you must have access to the front door with a wheelchair. There's been substantial changes to the Building Act to cater for access and mobility. So that's not a council issue. We are facilitators. Anything to do with council, we're basically public spaces, so public toilets, access to the roads and the footpaths. We've got an access and mobility plan. We are constantly looking at that all the time. So if you've got a special case, you just need to bring it to your local councillor. I understand that it's a special needs bathroom that you're talking about. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. It's just in general, like I know that the project is coming together that I've been fighting for the last 2.5, 3 years at the council board. So I believe if I get an accessible change facility that's not only going to be great for local residents, but also for tourism. That's always been forgotten. We just had the year of accessible tourism, and I believe that Cairns has dropped the ball and has not done enough to jump on board and facilitate local businesses to jump on board and get on these grants and actually do something about it, like access to the reef. My daughter can't go to the reef because she's in a wheelchair. It's really troublesome. Like there's no accessible buses. She can't even go on school excursion because the local bus providers don't have a big bus.
Yeah, a lot of those issues you're talking about aren't council issues, but more than happy for you to get involved and facilitate a conversation with them. They are collaborating all the time. So if you've got something special, talk to your councillor and come in. But they are looking at all of these issues all the time. The Rory Pool will be looked at. They've just signed a consultancy contract to look at all our aquatic facilities. And that includes from the boulders and all of the swimming pools, the Edmonton pool that John will be talking about. It will be looking at all of those issues, and that's where you'll get some feedback into the Rory pool, for example.
Doreen and Emma, thank you for the question. The changing facility at the lagoon has started. It went out for tender late last year. It's currently a construction site. Now this is something that I was made aware of back in 2020, I think it was, when Doreen approached me, and I've advocated very hard through budget deliberations. It got postponed for 12 months and it's come back, and we're getting a changing facility. That is a fully accessible bathroom facility with a hoist and a special table for changing. And that means the economic drivers of our community can grow because people can go to dinner and they can go to CPAC and see a show. They can be truly included and connected to our community. That's important. But I have to say, your question in regards to what can council do, I think we need to probably just pause and start again and have a fresh look, because as a CBD councillor, I get a lot of complaints, and I'm advocating that it's falling on deaf ears, no pun intended. The signalised crossings, and you have the press the buttons for the green man or green person, they used to be automatic on all the main streets. Think about Spence Street, from Kent Central all the way down to the Esplanade. And we got a couple of complaints. I believe we had 7 complaints in 18 months that people had to wait 2 seconds to be able to turn left because the red arrow was on in case someone was walking. So they took them off. Now I have legally blind residents that live in the city that rely on that sound, and they don't see, so then they have to press, and then they have to wait potentially 1.5 cycles because it's not safe for them to cross. So that's an issue. And I keep talking about being a pedestrian-friendly, accessible city, and they said, "Councillor, I don't know where you got that language from. That's not in our documents." So that would need to change, in my opinion. And when you think about the Esplanade, there's 2 signalised crossings for the length of the Esplanade at Spence Street intersection and down by the hospital. That's it. And if you are legally blind, if you're in a wheelchair, and if you need access support to get across, you've got 2 points, and they're really hard to get to in and around a wheelchair or with any physical disability to actually access those points. So they have been raised and raised again, however they meet the certain standards. I say we need to do better than the substandards. Thank you.
This gets back to the earlier point about integrated planning, to Yodi's question earlier, and it's one of the things that I'm really pushing for. In the 2050 document, as I mentioned earlier, it's really a very woolly document. Everything for the future with transport, access, population, etc., must go around the idea that we integrate the planning. And unfortunately, this is a problem when you have a tiered government system in Australia. Everyone's working in their silos, in their little corners and so on. We have to broaden that. We have to broaden the scope of our thinking, and we have to think about the nature of what it's going to look like with the expanding population, as I've mentioned. And in relation to the point just made by you, in that concept, the bus system, which is all part of this growing population down the linear corridor, those trackless trams, for example, that are being mooted in Brisbane, they're now running them or operationally proposing them in 6 routes. They will have much more sympathetic access options for people getting on and off as we move forward into a more visionary transport environment. So a rapid transit system, taking care of the issues that you just mentioned in terms of access to them, and also, of course, dealing with this broader issue of how people get from A to B in an expanding population. Thanks.
Just real quickly, it is actually part of the Disabilities Act that is incorporated into all councils, government organisations. It is the responsibility of council to be assessing pathways, accessibility, and incorporating that into their plans. I've seen highways where someone that's elderly or with a disability has to walk half a mile to a kilometre up the road to find a crossing, to cross to the other side, to go to a shop on the other side. It's just lunacy, and it all comes down to the people that are representing you on the council. I will not accept that it's not their responsibility. The buck stops there.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. Who is the next person that would like to ask a question as briefly as you possibly can, if you don't mind?
Not a problem, Karina St. Perry. My question to the councillor, proposed mayoral candidates. During this term, in Cairns we had a crisis in rental vacancies. And then the council sent out letters to landlords proposing the tenant tax. That means they were going to increase the rates of properties that were investments compared to if you were owner occupied. At the moment in Cairns we had a critically tight rental vacancy of less than 1%. We're screaming out for vacancies in Cairns and in Queensland. The rental market is a nightmare. The last thing you need, or anyone needs, any landlord needs, is a proposed tenant tax that investment property gets taxed more simply because they're an investment compared to an owner occupied that's living right next door. At the moment, more support needs to be given to the landlords to help provide these investment properties, because they are the mums and dads of the community that are providing homes for these people. You need to look after them. So my question is, yes or no? Are you going to propose the tenant tax if you become mayor?
No.
Thank you. Paul Carroll said no. Amy Eden said no.
I'll have to say that I'm hearing exactly what you're saying, and I've had people say, I think that I'd like to say no. Some places capitalise big time, while the small people are copping it hard. So
Okay,
I think
thank you,
that
Binda. Thank you, mate.
The tenant tax is particularly looking at the Airbnbs.
No, the
Is
tenant
it a-
tax.
No, they went out for consultation to find out what's out there, particularly aimed at the Airbnbs, to try and get them to bring them back into the full-time tenancy, so you can get more people in full-time homes.
So is that a yes or a no?
Was that a yes or a no, Terry?
Not for a blanket tenant tax, no. Airbnbs.
Yeah, it's not a blanket one. The push, if you may have seen the article I wrote the other day, that it's a policy. It doesn't affect householders putting spare rooms in Airbnb or letting out your house for a few months of the year. And councils such as Noosa, which have done this, have seen a huge boost in their housing for local renters and balancing the needs of that tourism sector. So it's one option to bring rates for full-time Airbnbs into line with commercial guest houses to encourage landlords to put them back into rentals, because there's this disconnect between the commercial and the person who's renting it out, and they're not paying the same rates at the moment.
I didn't refer to Airbnb, I just want straight permanent rentals. Here in Cairns, critical is tight.
No, yeah. Well, that's my answer to it. I think Terry said the same thing.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. I do have one here very quickly. I'll ask it is to a specific candidate. So if you don't mind, it's actually a written one from a person that's wanting to remain anonymous. And the question's to Amy Eden. You are running on a platform of trust and transparency. No skeletons in your closet, yet you refuse to disclose the true value of your car hire arrangements with Cairns Cars. Section 108 of the Queensland Electoral Act requires candidates to disclose the market value of the gift, that is normal, commercial or sale value. Every single voter in this room knows that the commercial value of hiring a brand new vehicle for 4+ months far exceeds $500. Question is, why did you falsely, allegedly, disclose this donation to the Electoral Commission to stay below the $500 disclosure threshold?
Thank you for the question. Absolutely stand by my commitment of transparency, no skeletons in the closet. First things first, words matter, and let's be factual. Have I hired a car? No, I haven't hired it. So this general hire fees that one associates with hiring a car don't come into play here. Now the business that had given me the car to use for a period of time have valued the car at just under $500. How do I know that? Because it's documented. It's been provided to ECQ and it's been recorded as required by ECQ on our internal records. Really, that is the matter. Pardon me?
Is that an FJ Gold? 500?
No, but I do drive an EJ sometimes. So, I think that's everything. It's documented, ECQ have all the documents. Just to clarify, in case there's any other lingering questions, the vehicle has been wrapped in pink. If you haven't seen it, you probably won't miss it once you do. That wrap was done here locally. It was paid for out of the team's bank account, and it was declared on the ECQ declaration system back in December. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, so anyone else would like to ask a question? Hands are up, but just the gentleman very briefly. We've got, I can see third down the back there. I'm coming down there, and go for it.
Yeah, thanks to the candidates.
Right. Thanks to the candidates. Look, it's been a very diverse group we've got here. I've found this afternoon. 2 candidates stand out. Everyone is very educated. I'm impressed with that again too. My big thing with Cairns is roads, rates and rubbish. That's the thing that no one addresses. I know there's a lot of social issues that come to play, police issues, crime and all the rest of it. And that's the next point. Crime and other issues of justice do not come into being or into play with the council. That's absolutely nothing to do with it. Now Paul would know that too, having been in the position he was in. I just hope, Paul, if you get in, you don't think you're running a police force when you're running a council, if you're mayor. Another question I've got, why the bloody hell doesn't anyone support the building of a dam in this place? We've got water flowing past my residence, 2 feet deep, the most beautiful pristine water in the rain. Where's it go? Into the ocean with all the dirty cigarette butts and everything else. Can't we get some of these green people and other people to wake up to the fact a dam is the only way to do it? Someone have some guts, please. Yes. Not enough to support it already. Thank you.
Okay, so that's a damn question, but there's, I think, a question there for you.
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. And I've never once said that crime, law and order, doesn't sit with the state government. Crime prevention sits with all of us, everyone. Community, it does. Community St. Laws does. Oh yeah, it does. Have a look at local government act. Anyway.
Cameras and other things, yes.
So that's not crime prevention?
Well, I'm talking about going out and arresting offenders.
Who said we're going to arrest offenders?
That's what we want done for.
Yeah. No. Just hear me. So again, so crime, law and order, sits with state government.
Yes.
Police are doing a great job, they could do better,
Yes.
but that's their job. Local government can be partners to bring down crime prevention. There's lots of crime prevention strategies where local government are hooked into it. You're not saying that safety, community safety is not part of council?
With cameras and all that sort of stuff, yes.
They put in for a Safe City Award some years ago. They asked me to sign a form to support them. So if you're putting in for a Safe City Award, I'm thinking that you think community safety is part of local government. Anyway, I'm happy to talk to you later, but I can give you heaps of examples.
One point.
Yeah,
Cairns has not been for a long time before your career came up here.
Yeah.
I came here 45 years ago.
yeah,
Cairns had about 30,000 people.
yeah,
Right? It was a pretty safe sort of city.
Yeah.
It was a pretty safe sort of a city. The population changed, tourism buggered it all. That's what brought in the influx of people into the place. The high rise and all the rest of it, which was unacceptable for people. But take back all the little Japanese girls were murdered and raped from my period of time here, from 79 through to my retirement in 2005. Some of the offenders were never ever found. It's not a safe city, particularly after 6. And what's been happening in shopping centres with old ladies and people of my age being knocked over, their cars taken, and serious assaults. You can't call this a bloody safe city. So you're no longer a commissioner of police or assistant commissioner of police. What can you do with me? You can't do anything in relation to that. That's my feeling.
I'm happy to talk to you later on, mate, and talk to you. The other thing was about the dam. Answer the damn thing? The damn thing. That's the damn thing. So, I feel sorry for council in the fact that their choice of options for water support, instead of everything being on the table, I can see that their choices were narrowed down. And I'm guessing that's right, Terry?
That's correct.
So, you know, and that is because of political imperatives of others, no doubt, the state and the Commonwealth.
You'll never get a dam while the Greens support the Labor Party.
So, you know, one of the things that I would suggest is that we look at what is the best option for Cairns, and we advocate for that. And if others in political positions want to argue that that's not for Cairns, well, that's up to them. But are they going to pay for the more expensive, less sustainable option? And that's something that should be put to them as well.
So we get to
I think there really needs to be a few facts put on the table. I think that's a low blow there, Terry. I really is. It's not the truth. I mean, I was on the Nolinga Dam Committee. I can assure you, I know this issue back to front, and I can assure you that dam failed, and it was the only one viable outside of Tinaroo and outside of Copperload. The one you yourself have mentioned, Flaggy and others, they're all history and they're not going to happen. So when they talked about this has been going on since even before Tinaroo and Nolinga, it failed because it's not a suitable location for a dam. It's a flat dam. It only rains for 2 months of the year. The water absorption, dispersion and evaporation rate was enormous. It wasn't really going to service Cairns anyway. The cost was enormous. It was rejected because it was simply not economically viable. I mean, you've actually answered the question yourself, Terry, by saying these other alternatives are not viable. That was another one that wasn't viable. Nothing to do with the environment movement, the green movement. Don't even think of it. It was done for purely economic reasons because it wasn't viable and didn't service Cairns.
Right, okay, so like I said, behind the scenes I've been meeting with a lot of counterparts, right? Including ministers a lot. I can guarantee you that it's from a Queensland government perspective, they will be investing in dams. It's the only viable option to store water is by dams, and this has come from my mouth right now. Queensland government will be investing in dams infrastructure. I'm just going to look. You know what they're talking in details, but there are plans to elaborate in waterways to contain more water for the future growth of the area, as well as the Burdekin. There's also talks of delivering water through North outback Queensland as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to have a go as well, Amy?
Sarah, just very quickly, in regards to dams, I think it needs to be known that, as mentioned previously, came to Cairns and like many of you fell in love with the mountains. And we have an opportunity for a dam to be gravity fed. What does that mean? That means we don't have a lifetime of pumping. Pumping is energy. If we're talking about reducing our energy print, even if we're going to offset it with solar panels, it's a lifetime of pumping. We need to have the conversations, and they're going to be difficult depending on the politics of the day, but they need to be had. We've got a lot of opportunities, particularly south, in and around Bartle-Frere, to explore dam opportunities. It is the only way for truly sustainable water. And in regards to local government and crime, I think Paul did address that. Did you have anything further on that? In the sense of the roads, rubbish and rates?
That's all I'd like.
That's right. And I think moving forward, you've got to think about the 3 W's as well, which is water, waste and well-being. Well-being being housing and the antisocial behaviour, as well as those 3 R's.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, down the back there with the blue shirt, take a question from there, and then we'll get one from the front, if that's okay.
Hello. Oh, hello. Good afternoon. Thank you all for attending. Lovely to see all the mayoral candidates. Frankie Hogan. One of my 2 questions. Talking about water, I'd like each of the mayoral candidates to reply yes or no to whether they are advocating for fluoride being put into the water, which a lot of the locals do not want. So I'd like a yes or no on that. Also, I'd like to know if you would reintroduce the general business motion that was taken away last May after the cash petition. There was some sentences put into the I can't think what it is now, about the reintroduction, about the general business motion, to stop one councillor putting their hand up to say, we've got a beef about, my constituents have a beef about something, can we have a vote on it? So that's a really important thing because it was changed, and it means that all the councillors have to vote for it behind the scenes before it even goes to the council chambers. Thank you.
2 questions.
When I was asked by Isaac McCarthy at the Cairns Post what my views were on fluoride, I gave him a wrong answer, and of course it was put in the Cairns. By the way, Isaac's left the Cairns Post. Yeah, he used to everybody. He's gone off to join the fire service apparently. Anyway, so he said to me, you know, what's your position? And I told him, I grew up in the west of Scotland. They introduced fluoride there after the Second World War, and as you know, Scottish teeth are pretty bad, and the record of improvement was phenomenal. And I've got hardly a filling in my mouth. And I was, based on my own personal experience and so on, I was a pro-fluoride person, and I think people do bring their own personal experience to this conversation. But what I said to Isaac and what I would say to you is I'm just one voice. As a mayoral, my personal view is I'm pro. If in a council I would not be, the question that was put by the Cairns Post was, will you introduce fluoride into the water? Well, that was a kind of a silly question because we are, one person and 9 councillors. So it was never going to be what I thought. That was a conversation that would take place within the council. And I said that my view was yes, but as to the others, that would be their opinion. And I'm aware that it's a very contentious issue. So I don't want it to be a polarising one, particularly in this forum at the moment. Thanks.
And the second question, Dennis, just quickly, a yes or no? On the general motion?
Well, yeah, that seems to make sense, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Personally, fluoride, I'm a no, but it is
It's a poison.
it's a public health issue. In 2008, Anna Bligh mandated that councils put fluoride in water, so Cairns Regional Council put it in. Campbell Newman got in, he said, you can take it out if you wish. We took it out. He left it up to the council. So we haven't had it since Campbell Newman's government. If they want to mandate it, that's their choice. It is a Queensland government public health issue, nothing to do with Cairns Regional Council. Simple as that. Frankie, the other question was motions without notice, was it?
Yes.
General business. Yeah, you have to get the support of your councillors to put a general business motion. I think that was changed recently. It wasn't a Cairns Regional Council thing. I think it's something to do with the Local Government Act. Personally, I don't mind general business motions.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry.
Trying to move along with
Yes,
time a
try to
bit
be
if we
quick.
can.
Personally, I am not supportive of fluoride, but as previously mentioned by Dennis and Terry, we are one voice. However, it really comes down to the council and ultimately the community. So there would be a commitment from an Eden-led council to survey the community and check, but it's not something that we would be actively pushing. If the state were to mandate it, obviously then it has to happen. In regards to the generous business motions, Frankie, you know very well that I am a supporter of making sure that people have an opportunity to raise concerns of their constituents at the council chambers, so I would be supportive of that. Thank you.
Okay, so an important question, thank you very much for that. As of this morning, I was actually in consultation with the person from the MP in England, right? And we was actually speaking about this. Look, I was part of a group that was advocating to have fluoride removed, and I believe God gives us a natural resource. However, my position, whether I personally believe it or don't, is about obtaining the right professional advice. And with the statistics of what they're delivering over the last couple of years, this tooth decay has increased with the removal of fluoride. Holistic approach, again in the community, these health professionals know more about it than I do. No, listen, these, well, apparently, right, hang on, let me finish, right? So then I spoke about this morning, and he said, how do you know that the WHO, etc., the universities aren't a lobbyist group, right? So I'll leave that with you there, but as I stand, my personal views as I believe God should give us natural clean water, but I am aware of the different chemicals they're putting in it to reduce bacteria, so I'll trust the health professionals and consolidate with the environment and health ministers.
The great thing about democracy is that you can abscond if you like. It seems as though that might be one of those.
I'll just do it from here so it's easier. So I didn't support it in paper the other day, and the problem is if you put it in the water, everyone has to drink it. Those that need to drink it, they can get tablets. The other thing is there's more to oral health than just drinking water. When you see the number of people that are accessing soft drinks at a very young age and other unhealthy products, I think there's a bit of education to be done there before we jump at committing to fluoride. I don't know the costs, but I imagine only a very small portion of it would end up being drank. We'd be washing our clothes, bathing, showering, watering the lawn, so forth. In relation to the other one, I believe in a healthy democracy, and I believe that the right people get chose to represent the divisions. They should be raising fearlessly those issues that are important to the division.
Right. So I forgot that last question, but it's an interim point. Like, it is important that one person should have a voice to make change, and it's hard when you have so many people belonging to one group that can vote against you as a majority against a minority, and this is, I'll leave that there.
Thank you for that. Okay, let's go to the next question down the front here. Okay, we've got a hand up here on the left. Sorry, yes, and then just directly in front of that gentleman, we'll get you next.
I've got a short question about crime. Sorry, is that working? Yep, there we go. I've got a short question about crime for Councillor Eden. This week, the Queensland Police Service have been saying they're getting dragged in too many different directions. There's not enough officers on the beat, things like that. In your opening speech, you spoke about putting police in council camera rooms. Do you still think that's a good idea, given there aren't enough police on the beat as is and they can't get enough?
Thank you for the question.
Sorry, you didn't say your name.
Aaron.
Aaron, thanks for the question, mate. Yes, I stand by that. Absolutely. It's been proven time and time again that proactive policing works. Now, Cairns Regional Council, as a local government, is very much in this space. We house, which is we accommodate our police liaison officers down in Esplanade. We give them a vehicle. So we are very much at the table and helping them. However, they have just implemented a new policy which allows them to employ police officers from other Commonwealth countries, and that started last year, and consequently their police numbers are rising. So they're working on what they need to do, which is to get boots on the ground, but I will not apologise, I will not back away. We need active police, we need to expect them to continue to do a very good job, and I have to say, generally speaking, they do an absolutely very good job in very difficult circumstances, but there's roles for them to play. And that Operation Romeo in 2018 proved very, very successful. It was a 6-month operation, and the stats speak for themselves. Happy to discuss after if you like.
Thank you, Amy. Next question is the lady here, I promised, and we'll go across the other side of the room and maybe to the back next.
I live in Edmonton.
What's your first name first, if you wouldn't mind?
Nan. I go up Mount Peter Road all the time. It's the only way I really can get to my place. But I've just noticed the deterioration of that road. It's not a street, it's a road. And because they've had a new Catholic school there in the last few years, I can't count the traffic going up there at 8 o'clock in the afternoon. So they're going up, they're coming back. Some go on a bus, but most of them, I think, are all going with their mums and dads in cars. So you can imagine that what the council's got now, when they've approved of that to go ahead, they've also should have looked at the infrastructure that we're all finding has deteriorated so much with new growth. There's new housing coming, but I think it's pretty disgusting. I just had to put some new tyres on the car the other day, nearly died how much? $500 for one car, but okay, for one tyre. But I just nearly started counting all the holes in that road yesterday. And all they do is come in and fill in a little hole like that. I don't know where we're going to have the patience for them to lift it all up and start again. But I really do think it has to be looked at. Thank you.
Is that question directed to anyone in particular?
The council.
Okay, all right. We could start probably with the current mayor, if that's okay with you.
Fair enough.
Start with it. Council does look at all of these, and they're probably done on a priority basis. I don't know where that particular road is. I'm sorry, I know it is, but I mean on the council's maintenance program. So the divisional.
Please take it back.
The divisional councillor will probably know a lot more about nothing.
Who is the divisional councillor?
Robbie Pine at the moment, I think.
Yeah, where is he?
Yeah, where is he?
Never seen him.
Oh, sorry, no, it's,
No, I'm part of it.
you're part of. You're one half of the other side.
No,
Okay.
just, Nan, I can let you know that we have a reporting system, a CRM. If you've got an issue, I can come and talk to you. Periodically, they are filled in if there's an issue. But in terms of Mount Peter Road and the widening, we're going to have the Shea Road bypass coming very shortly. I see John waving his fist there, which will take from Mount Peter through Shea Road, that'll come out at Sugar World. So that's going to alleviate some of that traffic back up at Mount Peter. There will be a road upgrade as well as lights coming in when that development of that road takes place, which should be, at this stage, we're looking about 2026 to have that done.
Okay,
What's the share? So they'll wait another 2 years?
No, I said you can come and talk to me and
No, I'm just telling you right now, outside there, from going out from Braconis, going on the road up, you can count, go for a drive yourself and start looking at that now. Can't wait.
No,
2 more years.
I'll have a look at that, but that's Division 2.
Does it go down the centre of the road, Brett? Whoever goes down the centre of the road.
I don't like politics, so I don't like jumping.
maybe the mayor has some executive power.
Thanks for the feedback and the question, Nan. Just probably really quickly on this point, I think Councillor Muller's addressed that with the customer reference number, that we can log that job. But I think it really brings an important point about cost shifting from the state. I get a lot of feedback from residents that live in and around some of our state schools and funded schools, and the streets seem to deteriorate faster, all the parking goes, and that responsibility for that safe parking really falls back onto the local government, yet really it should have been in the planning when the schools were being done. So I will be pushing back at that, because I know I've got a few schools that are already onto me, and the parents and the families in and around that, and ratepayers shouldn't have to pay that. That's a state school or the school responsibility. So that needs to be factored in with the planning. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Where are we going? Over here in the green shirt. If Sandy, will you mind? Okay. Thank you.
Terry, question to you. Recall back in 2012 to 2020, we ran the council on about 1,200 staff from my memory. And I know I had a conversation with John Andrew when he was CEO just before the 2020 election. He was talking about having to put on, in the coming budget, so we're talking about the budget that came down after the election, about another 4 outside staff, because we had some subdivisions and more parks and areas that needed to be mown. And he said maybe we might need an extra one internally. So basically 5 extra staff. So we're looking at low 1,200s, 1,205 or so, because that's about where we sat with our staffing numbers. I had a look at the staffing numbers a couple of weeks ago. We're currently running at about 1,340 staff. How have we gone from 1,200 when John Andrew was there to 1,340 under this current administration? How? I'm told by John Andrew that's added close to $30 million to the overheads in council. Why are we paying this money as ratepayers?
Thank you for that, and that's John Schilling for everybody to know. He's a current candidate in the local area.
Good question, John. They're probably needed. We're always getting complaints about not enough staff to do the job, and we are constantly getting a turnover of staff, and getting the right people is a big issue.
But an extra 130 staff, Terry. An extra 130 staff.
That was back a fair while ago.
No, it was 3 years ago, Terry.
A lot of them are contractors as well. They're not those 1,300.
They are listed as staff by your CEO.
So John, when you get involved and when you win the election, you can sack them all. There you go.
Okay, well, I guess what I heard there is that the council executive are justifying the extra numbers because there's just not enough staff, apparently. Is that right, Terry?
We're always asked to do even more with even less, you know. It's a continual problem.
Come on, Terry. You can't be serious, mate. $30 million.
Can I just say, in the recent budget meeting, which was in June, which you saw a 5.99% rate rise, we had 10 million in new nice to have initiatives. One of them was a city place designer. What is that? That's called red tape. That's called employee costs continuing to balloon. That is not essential frontline service. That's called middle management. Yes. And when you have your staff telling you that your organisation is like an upside down triangle, you know something's not in balance. Balance is the key.
Yeah. Would anyone else like to comment from the candidate pool on that question? You really missed out, Binda.
Look, very important, you know, about integrity, about delivering the right budget. I have been said, there's so many people employed in this division, but what do they do? Exactly. Right? I've actually stated on my mayor candidacy page that I will be reviewing certain people in certain roles to see if they're actually getting the job done, and we might have to do a bit of shuffling around, and I think we could save some money and put the right people in the right positions that actually work for community and their divisions.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, next question. We've got a question here at the front. first name, suburb, and your quick question.
My question's for Terry. My name's Perry. Okay, so my question to Terry is, and I've asked this question to Amy as well before. So, at the moment, with the CTV footage to run, costs council $1.4 million. How is adding in more CTV footage going to stop crime? If a kid is driving down Mulgrave Road in a stolen car at night, he cannot be seen on the cameras. So how is putting in more cameras going to help crime? My second question is, we have 15 or 17 liaison officers down the Esplanade. I work in the city every day. I have not seen one of those police liaison officers. The one of the cars that you donated has sat under the tree for over 4 weeks collecting bird poop. So why are we donating cars and having liaison officers if we never see them on the streets? And another question, why do we have to have bottle shops at Woolworths open at 9 o'clock in the morning and they're lined up? They should be not allowed to open until after 12 o'clock at least.
We'll go backwards. Last question, totally agree with you. We need to advocate to stop that or even potentially get that bottle shop out of there. That's what has to happen. It's a big problem in the CBD. The police liaison, vehicle and officers, they're tasked by the police, isn't that correct, Paul?
I'm not quite sure of the present arrangement. It could be.
Yeah, they're tasked by the police. Council is just facilitating. We've given the free rent in that building downtown because we want them in the city.
And they're never there.
And, well, we can follow that up, but they are tasked by the police. They're not tasked by council. We're just facilitating the facility so they can be there in the city, and we paid for the car. What was the first one?
Well, the car sat under the tree down at the pier for over a month collecting bird food, and then when we complained about it, the car got shifted.
We'll follow that up. How does more cameras? The cameras aren't the be all and end all of everything, but they are the eyes and ears, and they do these cameras, and particularly the late one we've got. Hello? You can see the pimple on your nose from 2 blocks away. They are fantastic. So,
Not on Mulgrave Road, they can't.
no, well, I can't see who's driving the car. Yeah, that's correct. That's another issue. But we need the cameras so the police can prosecute these people. They're constantly in our camera room looking for footage so they can prosecute some of these offenders. So it's not the be all and end all, but I can tell you it does make a significant difference to the amount of prosecutions. Is that right, Paul?
Yeah, no doubt about that. Yeah.
I just wanted to say on Mulgrave Road as an example, because there's a patch that's in my division, and I was having a lot of problems in and out around the Bungalow Hotel, and there's a bus stop and things like that. And I was just vigilantly reporting everything into council's system and also to police. We subsequently have got a camera on the intersection there of Formula and Mulgrave, and that camera can pan all the way to just past the service station near Trinity Bay High, significantly. And I have not had one complaint from the residents that I used to hear from all the time since that camera has got in. So definitely, I don't know about the ears. When Terry said eyes and ears, I don't know if we can hear, but it's definitely the eyes that help.
So why don't they put one in at DFO?
That's the thing. So things have to be reported and logged to be able to create a history. And part of the suburban safety program really is about those identified hotspots. If we know about them, then we can do something about it. If we don't, then we can't. You'll know probably just because of personal circumstances, but there was a street behind Cairns Central that was a hot spot. And I was constantly reporting a whole range of things, and we had Queensland Police, we had fireys, we had council, the planning, the regulation team. We had a whole heap in there and really cleaned it up. And I just sent an email 2 days ago to the residents to check in, and I haven't heard anything negative back. But we have to know about it to be able to do something about it.
Okay. Okay, to do with the CCTV cameras, it is sort of fundamental in obtaining that evidence base there for future prosecution. Now, I've just finished a little degree in justice, and I got to work with police prosecutors. I got to meet with federal police, water police, a whole lot of different organisations. We had the PLOs come in with senior sergeant, and our discussion was how can they do more to support crime and reducing it and that. So right now we're actually looking at a change of job description for the PLOs to be more engaged in community.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm just conscientious. I think it's about 3:15. Is that right? 3:30, is it? Okay, so at this point in time, what we're doing is moving into the next phase of the forum. Now, the mayoral candidates are very busy, and we're very grateful, of course, for their time today, but this is a moment for them to be able to head off if they want to. They're welcome to stay, because I'm sure that there's other questions. I can see this lady here at the front. Sorry?
The one that was written down, are you able to
Yes. So there is one question left. Are you happy, candidates, just to take one more question? Is that okay? Yes. All right, and then we'll move on to the next phase. Just bear with me. Which one specifically would you like me to ask? Did you have a preference? There's two.
Yeah, one about
the one.
with independents working together.
Okay. Let me have a look. I'll give this to you. Just point out which one you want. That one? Okay. All right, here we go. So Mayor Terry James mentioned the chaos when he was part of the Bellshire Council.
I wasn't part of the council.
It is possible that if elected, any of the mayoral candidates may have a divisional councillor that do not align with their beliefs. How will each mayoral candidate ensure an effective council if this is the case?
Sorry, I wasn't on the Bellshire Council. That was the particular council that I wasn't on. But being a building consultant, having to deal with the council, with town planning applications and everything else during that period, it was near on impossible to get an answer out of any of the officers, because they would say, if I put my hand up over here, this one will chop it off. If I put it up over here, this one will chop it off. I rang one particular officer one day. I was looking for a simple situation to do with the sewer, and his response to me was, do you really want me to give you an answer on that with this council? So she had a particularly bad council. As I said, whether she had good intentions or not, whether you liked her or not, she had nowhere to go. It's called a hung mayor and a hung council, because the three factions spent their whole life fighting with each other, and the staff had no direction whatsoever. It was terrible.
So the question is, how will you work together?
Well, that's right. So it depends on the makeup of the council and the individual. You really have to form a relationship with those people so you can work with them, as simple as that.
Okay. Dennis?
Yeah, thanks for your question. I've been asked this question too. And of course there is this thing, automatically a hung parliament or a hung council is a bad thing. It actually can be a real plus. It shows that democracy is working. And when you have, and it's often this dichotomy, isn't it, between, strength, where you've got one party or one team running everything and then the power goes to their head and then it becomes very secretive, or you have a split council where you have genuine consultation, and to use the term strength, I would say strength in community, strength in consultation. And I think that if after 12 years of unity we have a diverse council, let's not call it a hung council, let's call it a diverse council, where you've got representatives from mixed teams all sharing, much more open than it's currently being behind closed doors. That to me is going to be really healthy. To me, that's a real plus for the town, a plus for the community, and I would advocate very strongly that that should happen. We don't want it all to be with one team controlling everything behind closed doors, as has happened. And people might say, oh, well, I try not to, I'm trying to share. It is a default. This is the problem when power goes to people's heads. if you do have a council or a party that is dominant, we saw that with Campbell Newman previously, people then get angry, and of course he got thrown out of after one term. So basically, we need a council that's diverse, communicative, and brave in its communication and its consultation that takes place with all of the stakeholders and the people that are within the council. And don't be ashamed of it. Strengthen community.
Thank you for the question. Just following on from Dennis's comments, I would agree that a diverse council that is reflective of our community is really important, because ultimately we are elected by you and put in those seats to represent you. So that's really, really important. I'd also just point out that in December in the council meeting we had the CEO's report, and it highlighted some of our media takings. I don't know if anyone is familiar with the report, but it's online and you can go back and check it. What I'm going to point out is we have a segment on 4CA radio, and the graph in the media report shows a massive skew, huge skew for 4CA. Now, council have a program on that radio channel on Fridays, but in 4 years that I've been in council, only Unity councillors are allowed to talk on that show. Did you know that?
No.
Yes. So, if I was to be elected as mayor, I would say that every single councillor, independent or otherwise, are put there because their community trusts them, their community want them to speak up, and they should be given every bloody opportunity to shine and represent their community. They should not be shut down, they should not be left out. There should be no caucusing of a team and having the remaining independents sitting in the chambers. That is not okay. That is not a council that is Cairns Regional Council of the future.
We might use this question as a final wrap-up for the mayors to maybe do a conclusion, and then we'll move into the next phase. Thank you.
Again, I can't express any further how important it is to have independence in councillors' representation. When you have grouping, how do you know if one person might be right about something and the rest are in line with everyone else? So I'll just leave that there. Full accountability, and I think people should be called out if they're playing political games in order for the future for Cairns.
Thank you. I think everyone's probably heard my views. Independence versus teams. I've got nothing personally against any of the teams or the team leaders, but I don't think teams brings the level of democracy to local government that the people deserve. I think people should be selecting the best person that's going to represent them in the division, that person that's going to be the most enthusiastic to get their view across, and likewise with the mayor. And as far as people go, individuals, there's a few divisions that I know of where probably a team member is probably the best choice if I was there. So I'm not against any of the team members, and I'm not against any of the team leaders. I'm against teams per se, and I think democracy is better served when you have true independence and when you have robust debate. And the mayor doesn't mean he's right. He should be, if everyone thinks he's raised something that's wrong, there should be robust debate, and it should lead to a better democratic process. And the bureaucrats will actually do a lot more work to present proposals if they know that it's not a done deal. It's been done before council even starts. So that's my piece. Wrap up. Aaron and your team, thanks very much for putting this on. I think it's a great opportunity for the community members to come here and raise questions, listen to all the candidates that are here. Full of sports, a great facility, and it's great that they allowed you to do it. I do wish all the mayor candidates and all the other candidates all the best in their journey, and we've only got 3 weeks to go, and then we'll see what happens. Thank you.
Okay, with that being said, unless there's anything final that the candidates would like to say, thank you so much for coming. You're welcome to stay. As I say, we're going to move in now to the Council of Candidates, and we're going to get an introduction to them, to everybody that's here who are interested.